So one of the things we do here in our little community is we sort of check in the morning. It's kind of like a weather report, you know, what's the weather like inside, and it can be helpful when living together, you know, knowing how somebody else is and how we are ourselves. And I noticed this morning, it's before we'd had that meeting actually, but I noticed this morning, even though I didn't have a lot of sleep last night, I think the full moon is keeping me awake, but I had this really joyful, little sort of happy voice in my head that was just kind of enjoying simple things, enjoying cleaning and enjoying moving around and enjoying being here, and it was just this sort of very joyful little quality, I suppose, that was in my mind, and I was like, oh, that's nice. It's not always like that. And then I recognised that before I meditated, it was not that I didn't have joy and happiness and so on. I did have experiences of joy, but the general voice or the tone in here was not nice. You know, it was judgmental and critical and it was something I tried to avoid having to hear. So I would keep busy, you know, and then I'd make sure there's some music playing or there was something going on that I didn't have to hear that. And then, of course, once one starts meditating, then you have to meet whatever's here. And it wasn't very pretty, but I met. And so, you know, I certainly did some very dedicated, intentional work of transforming that inner critic, you could say, the inner critic and the inner judge that was never happy or rarely happy with how things are, and with how this one is, you know. And so over the years that has changed, so which is very nice. So now, at that time, to be alone, it was okay if I was in nature. It would be okay. But if I was alone in a room or alone with other people, like not engaging with other people, then there would be this inner critic going on. And so now, if I'm on my own, it's quite nice. I enjoy my own company. It's quite peaceful in here nowadays, most of the time. And I also enjoy being with others. So it's a much happier environment to live in. And at some point I realised, you know, I'm living with this 24/7, like you're all living with yours 24/7. So we might as well make friends here, you know. And there's particularly a sense of the mind didn't really like the body. And the mind considered itself superior to the body, that it had to tolerate this really heavy, inconvenient body, and the mind thought that it was very noble in that it did tolerate the body, you know. But actually, body and mind, you know, they're our vehicle. This is our vehicle for this lifetime. It's what we've been given for this life, and this life is an opportunity to transform old unhelpful patterns and to create more supportive habits and patterns, and also to empty out the accumulations that build up here. And there's a nutshell teaching which I often mention, to refrain from doing harm, to do good and purify the mind or the heart. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas, to refrain from doing harm, to do good and to purify the mind. So we can do harm internally and externally. We can do harm through cruel thoughts towards oneself, you know, harsh judgment, not being forgiving. The mind can be cruel to the body out of aversion, you know, which is interesting when you think about it, because they're like, here they are both all the time, pretty much all the time. and then of course it can do harm externally to people close to us, around us, and also further afield, and also to nature. It's pretty limitless, I think, what we can do. So to refrain from doing harm, intentionally refrain, and then to do good, to cultivate the good, to put effort into the good, and to put effort into friendliness, into building relationship, first of all, internally between body and mind, and to do good, to change unhelpful thought patterns and replace them. So at one point this morning I realised that, there's this chant going on, which was actually the chant we just did in English, but it was in Pali in my mind, and it's like, oh, how nice that's just sort of turned into a default. This really beautiful chant that's about wishing well-being for oneself and others. I mean, it wasn't always like that in here, but that's over time one transforms the old patterns, and you can replace unhelpful patterns with helpful, beneficial thoughts and intentions, and speech and action. And that so at the end of that chant, it's mentioning karma, which is always a bit of a can be a little bit of a gnarly topic in the Western Buddhist world. But one way we can think about karma, the way the Buddha talks about it, is action with intention. So I think in the old days, when in the society in India that the Buddha was living in, it was seen as just action. Any action is karma. Whatever you do is karma. And then the Buddha clarified, well, it's not just whatever you do, but it's whatever you do and the intention with which you do it. Because sometimes things happen with one intention. We have one intention and something else turns out, and so it's the action with intention and then the results of that he's pointing to, and of course that's how we do things in the world. What we're doing, what we're putting our energy into, creates karma, or we are creating karma each time we do something. So coming here, actually, today is creating karma. It's good karma. You create good karma, which is nice. And then we can also create good karma, making the space available. Our landlord, she's making good karma. She's very helpful. So all of these things is like good karma is being created, and that's supportive. And so it's like a trajectory that starts to build momentum in one's life. And likewise, if we're doing harmful things or having harmful thoughts in the mind that we're entertaining, harmful speech, harmful actions, then we're putting energy into that, and we're creating a momentum there. So we want to stop that momentum of the harmful. We want to pull that back, and it can be very uncomfortable to do that, because in some ways it feels easier to just put it out there than to have it here and work with it. And I lived with somebody at one time who would do that. They'd just like, it'll come out, and then they'd be like, well, what's the problem? I feel much better now, It's like, well, nobody else does, So there'd be this sort of like, okay, you feel better, but, now that all of that stuff's in the environment. So also when we're refraining from doing, from speaking and acting on unwholesome thoughts, it can feel really unpleasant, because all that stuff we want to put out on somebody else, we're keeping it. We're keeping it here and we're composting it here, and that can be quite unpleasant. And in monastic life, that's kind of a bit of a high bar in some ways, because we all live together. It's not like it's sort of like I don't know. It's sort of like we're all sort of thrown together, not necessarily choosing who we want to be with, but we're just like, okay, this is the mix, and it changes all the time, also in monasteries. And then we can, like being with different people, different cultures, different situations can bring stuff up that we don't want to see. And then our work is to restrain, not be putting it out there, and to work with it. So you get to be really close up, to the grunge inside, and sometimes it can feel really unpleasant, But that work is a purification process. It's a really important part of the path. And so there's that refraining from doing harm, doing good, and then the purifying the mind piece is, if you're looking for rest, it's just there. Yeah, please, yeah. So we refrain from doing harm and working through that, which can feel really unpleasant, but it's what they say, like a dukkha that leads to the ending of dukkha. It's an unpleasant feeling that leads to the freedom from unpleasant feeling, or that same unpleasant feeling. And then there's the doing good, which is so we're replacing the unhelpful patterns with a good pattern, with a helpful pattern, with something that's really bringing blessings, really, into our life and to us, to our own life, and to those around us. So we're bringing blessings into the world, and that has its own trajectory as well. There's like a momentum to that. So the karma has this kind of momentum, and then purifying the mind, purifying the heart and mind. So the momentum of the good, it supports that. So if we're not building that momentum of good karma, then we're just like struggling with a difficult karma and then trying to be peaceful. But we actually need to build the good. We need to strengthen the good karma through many, many actions and intentions. There's many, many things one can do in a day, little things, big things. Yeah. And then there's the purifying the mind is the place of presence, where we're not putting anything. There's no momentum, or the momentum is just kind of coming back here. The momentum is in collecting and strengthening and stilling the heart and mind. So it has a different movement to it. So first we're restraining the unwholesome, and then we're really strengthening and putting energy into the wholesome. And then there's this kind of collecting our attention, settling it, stilling it, bringing our attention more deeply into presence. So, and in that sounds very peaceful, but sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But in that practice of collecting and stilling, that's where the purification happens. So it's important, and coming back to that little voice in my head this morning, and that was like happily chanting away. And often we can have things that are it's like they're playing. It's like programs that are playing, in the background, like that, and we don't really notice them. And so we might be doing good things, or just doing what we're used to doing, and we're just not aware of the program that's playing back there. But actually, that whatever's playing on that program matters, because it's influencing everything we do. And so I wanted to just really point to that background programming that we might have, and see if you can notice it, at times in the day. See if you can notice it, and what is it saying? Is it kind? Is it encouraging? Is there wisdom there? Or is it critical, of ourselves and or others? Is it always looking at what's wrong? Is it impossible to satisfy? And just to see what program, what's the programming here, because we can change the programming, and then so that will be going on in the background, and then as we practice and deepen our practice, then there'll be times, maybe even extended times, where there's no program running. There's just presence. There's just being with this as it is, and meeting this, whatever this may be. And the this of our experience is very varied. The world, even somehow on a beautiful day in Port Townsend, it can be rather wonderful, but the world has, it has the whole array of everything. So we have to be willing to meet life as it is, with the ups and the downs, the beauty and the ugliness, and the pleasure and the pain, the comfort and discomfort, all of that. And then to be aware, how are we meeting this? What program is running? How are we meeting our experience? So we can change the program, and with effort, and it changes everything. It's kind of interesting. And then ultimately just being here, just being here with this body and mind, and meeting what we meet in an open, clear, present way is that is really the place of peace. It's a very simple thing. It's so simple we might not even recognize it when we're there. But it's I don't want to say it's the goal, because there really isn't exactly a goal. But it's when we're no longer sort of grappling and struggling and trying and developing, and we can lean back a little bit into being. And when we lean back and we listen, that those programs have been turned off, they're not activated, then we're just with this, in a state of presence. And that's, the Buddha is pointing to that. He's pointing to meeting our experience as it is, and all of the ways we colour and stir up and obscure the way of things. So I guess that little chant this morning going on in my mind, it was just saying, make sure everybody knows what their program is that's running in the background. So I just wanted to offer that today, and I hope that's useful.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.